What's up, producers? You know what's cool? Nice, clean LFOs. You know what's cooler? Dirty LFOs. And you can do those in Pigments in a really cool way. Let me show you how. So the best way to show you is I'm going to go ahead and just make a dirty sound by changing the position of the wavetable to something closer to a square. And now if we take this LFO and put it on the cutoff for the filter, let's go ahead and sync it. So that's a very clean LFO. It's going to cycle the position of the cutoff from the lowest point to the highest point in a very clean way because we have it on sine. Now we do have some random options or even sawtooth, but what I want to do is continue with that nice clean sine wave, but add some jitter or make it dirty along that pathway. And the way you do that in Pigments is using the Combinate feature. So we do have a random modulator here as well, and we're actually going to combine that with the LFO. I'm going to come up to the cutoff and just remove that bit of modulation. And if I come into Combinate, down here where it says source for Combinate 1, I'm going to choose LFO. Now, as soon as I do that, you'll see an LFO being populated here, and you'll notice that it's the exact same LFO as LFO 1. It's got the same shape and frequency, and that's important. The next thing I want to do is assign a modulator to it, and for this, we're going to use random because I want to add a little bit of jitteriness to the LFO shape, and as soon as I start to introduce the amount, visually, you can see a little bit of randomization being added to the sine wave. And that's great. So what we want to do is assign that Combinate to the filter cutoff again and just add a little bit. And now when I play a note, you should be able to hear that little bit of randomness being added to the otherwise clean sine wave. We can add a bit more so we can really hear it. Now we have a bunch of different ways that the randomness can be applied by using math functions, and those math functions are designated by type down here. If I change it to sum, let's really boost up the amount so we can hear it clearly. We have difference. We have multiply. And of course, we can come into the LFO and change the speed. We can come into the random function and change its length or the rate here as well. And it's all going to make a difference to the overall sound that we get from the Combinate feature. You can see here now it's pretty wacky. In fact, let's slow down the LFO, but keep the random speed up. So that's the general gist. Now let me show you how to use that in an actual patch to get a little bit of extra character from your sound. I'm going to come into this patch called Alley Investigation. I'm going to come out, and this is what the patch sounds like out of the gate. This is just one key being pressed. Okay, sounds really great. Now I can see that filter 2 is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. So what we're going to do is come in and just double click these to get rid of that modulation. And we're going to do the same exact thing as we just did. I'm going to come into Combinate. I'm going to choose the source, which would be LFO 1, modulated by randomness. I'm going to pull the amount way up. And now we should get a lot more character in the higher end of the spectrum. Of course, once we add the Combinate to the filter cutoff and we really pull it up. And if we wanted, just like before, we can come in and increase the frequency of the LFO. So you can see it's just a cool way to get a little bit more character out of your otherwise standard LFO without going completely random. Remember, we've got a clean LFO here, and you can use any one of the shapes. Obviously, here I'm using more of a triangle, but any one of those, that will be your basic guideline, and then you're going to add randomness to it. And it just adds more character, I would say. It's a dirty LFO, and it's a really cool feature inside of Pigments. Anyway, I hope you learned something. I'm Joshua Casper, and I'll see you in the next video.